Hi, best friends. I'm Tabby.
And I'm Caitlin, and today we are doing another installment of Best Friends Book Club Explained, the history of werewolves. And I'm so excited. I am so ready to have this discussion with you because I learned a lot. I think you're going to learn some things you've never heard of before. And it's just such an interesting topic. Before we get started, I want to say, in my studies, I came across an academic blog about werewolf folklore,
Oh,
and it is called maverickwerewolf.com. And this individual has legitimately studied like folklore, like professionally, academically, and has so many articles about werewolf related topics. They also are experts in vampires, but the blog is like about werewolves. Maybe they have one about vampires as well.
interesting. I'll have to
Yeah,
look.
you'll have to look. And then also, I used Wikipedia a lot. So I just wanted to shout out my two main sources.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, lycanthropy. Lycanthropy is the condition of being a werewolf. So a lycanthrope is a human that can shapeshift into a wolf, or it's a hybrid wolf-human creature. I think, as we all know, the shifting can be like voluntary, like they can shift at will, kind of like a Twilight werewolf, or it can be involuntary, where it's like the full moon, it's a curse, you can't stop it, kind of thing. In some legends, the condition is something that can be like passed along like a disease kind of thing. So, like if a werewolf bites you, then you become a werewolf as well. Most interesting to me that I discovered is that there is such thing as prehistoric werewolves. So
Oh,
they discovered that like there are cave paintings and prehistoric artifacts that have been carbon dated back as far back as 45,000 before present. So that's like the early Paleolithic age. Like we're talking cavemen,
hmm.
literally cavemen. So that is so crazy to me. And just like anywhere that wolves existed, those cultures had some sort of werewolf legend, like individual of other cultures. So even though colonialism, as we will see, has a large influence on what we consider modern werewolves today, but these cultures in isolation had their own werewolf legends, which is like so cool. And I kind of wonder if that's the same with vampires. We'll find out whenever you do your Best Friends Book Club Explains.
I guess we'll see.
I guess we'll see. So beyond that, then we have some ancient history as well. So the Epic of Gilgamesh was an ancient Sumerian poem as depicted on the screen, this little stone tablet, where Gilgamesh refused to become the goddess Ishtar's lover because she had turned a suitor into a wolf. So he was in Ovid's Metamorphoses, which is an ancient Greek myth as well, tongue twister. Zeus turns King Lycaon into a wolf as punishment. So Lycaon was a king over the kingdom of Arcadia. And
Mhm.
he was like, which is crazy to me, he was beefing with Zeus and he was like, I doubt that he's even like as strong as they say. And he like tried to feed him human flesh and then also tried to have him assassinated in the night.
Hmm.
And then Zeus obviously is not one to let a slight go by unpunished. So whenever Lycaon realized that like, oh, he is actually really powerful, he tried to flee and then Zeus turned him into a wolf. So
I'm pretty
technically,
sure, like, didn't he try to feed him like the flesh of like his own like child or something like that?
oh, he might it might even be as twisted as that. I didn't look
Yeah.
super into the legend, but God, yeah, he probably did, and that's why Zeus was like, fuck you. Yeah, so King Lycaon is actually considered by most scholars to be the first werewolf because he's like the first one like in recorded history. So yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And Lycos itself means wolf in Greek, so we can kind of understand why Lycaon and lycanthropy, those are all originating from the word wolf. So medieval Europeans who were super educated in classical literature, then we're going to see how that translated into the legends through the Middle Ages because they were inspired by those tales. Um, so another like thought of where werewolf legends might have originated was that there were actually these warrior practices of dressing like wolves, like wearing wolf skins. For example, Dolan, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, was someone who fought for Troy during the Trojan War.
Hmm.
And so, like on this vase here, he's depicted as wearing a wolf skin. But what was more interesting to me is that there is a basically a warrior cult that existed. The Koryos, also known as the Minabunt, it was a basically a band of young adolescent men who were unmarried who went and lived together and like lived like wolves. And so um
Okay.
they were just little freaks, I guess. And I think that like perhaps this weird behavior may have translated into there are some men who are like half wolf because they were pretending to be wolves, low key.
Interesting.
Um, in all manners except physical, they were wolves, if you will.
In all manners except physical, I am a wolf.
I am a wolf. So that's crazy. And then all of those things got sort of translated and spread around Europe in the Middle Ages. This is where things really took off, okay? So most of what we like consider like the modern werewolf type lore comes from these like Christian like interpretations during the Middle Ages. Um, and then eventually those beliefs spread into the Western Hemisphere due to colonialism, as many things did. Werewolf itself is an Old English word meaning man wolf. Makes sense. And if you could imagine in Europe, like during this time, during the Middle Ages, they are farming a lot of livestock. They're having to feed a lot of people. So wolves are becoming like an actual like problem consistently. Whereas like before, of course, wolves were predators to humans, so they were scary. People avoided them. But now it's like we've kind of got these like concentrated areas that's going to like draw wolves in. Um, so naturally, that was scary to people,
Right.
and like those things did get exaggerated quite a bit. However, even though attacks on humans were rare, there was at least one recorded incident in 1271 where a pack of rabid wolves attacked humans and livestock, resulting in 30 human deaths in a
Oh
town.
my God.
So we can really understand why people were terrified of them. It's justifiable. So I'm not saying like, oh, it was exaggerated, like they're being dramatic. Like, no, it was exaggerated because it was like actually a real danger that like could happen.
Hmm.
Um, so that explains a lot of the fear and kind of how things might have gotten out of control with like legends of wolf man hybrids. So yeah, the that's kind of where things really started to take off. And then things did branch out from there. So the werewolf mythology of the Middle Ages kind of took two paths. Either the Germanic werewolf path that was associated with European witchcraft, or the Slavic werewolf, which I feel like is more prominent in pop culture today, that's associated with the revenant or vampire.
Okay.
So that's kind of where things divulge. First, we're going to start with the Germanic werewolf and its association with European witchcraft. So we're all familiar with the witch trials, I'm certain. Um, so like the witch trials, werewolf trials occurred beginning in the 15th century, and it kind of originated in what's now modern day Switzerland, but it was more widespread across Europe than just that, and continued well into the 18th century before it finally was like, we got to stop killing people for being werewolves. Um, what's interesting to me and something I didn't know is that actually it overlapped heavily with witch trials in general. So a lot of people who were being accused of witchcraft were also accused of either wolf charming, wolf riding, or lycanthropy itself.
Hmm.
Um, one of the most prominent cases was Peter Stump, who was a German
I know this
farmer.
one.
You do. This was news to me. Okay. So he was a German farmer and alleged serial killer who was accused of witchcraft and also being a werewolf, and cannibalism, and also incest. Um, so he was known as the Werewolf of Bedburg, and I will say, he did confess to practicing black magic and lycanthropy. He claimed that he had the ability to turn into a werewolf because he had like this magical belt that was given to him by
Hmm.
Satan. That belt was never recovered. Um, and his confession did come after being subjected to like a lot of torture, like a lot of torture. So like do it that way you will. Um, and
They have that
unfortunately,
belt somewhere.
they have that belt. He did it. I can prove it. No, unfortunately, he probably was like, accused incorrectly. And also, not only did he get executed, but his daughter got executed as well because, again, he was accused of incest with his daughter. And so they were like, well, she must be involved in this. Honestly, it's really tragic, like when you think
So
about
that's not
it.
really fair, but
It's pretty fucked up, but like people have always been like kind of fucked up and cruel. So this is just
you know.
that's just what happens. Um, okay, so next, talking more about our like kind of Slavic werewolf path. So there are some thoughts that they're kind of a werewolf vampire hybrid, known as the Vrikolicus, derived from the Slavic word Varkolak. Not sure if I'm saying any of this right, but that's one with wolf fur
Hmm.
is how that word's defined. So the Vrikolikas were in Greek folklore as well. So it's not just this more modern depiction. They were kind of a cross between a werewolf and a vampire, like I said. So some sort of like undead creature that also had werewolf characteristics. So there were a couple different ways that this was depicted. Like either you could become this from eating tainted livestock that had been killed by a werewolf, or if a werewolf died and had like some sort of unfinished business and was now haunting the earthly
Hmm.
realm as an undead version of themselves. So kind of interesting how they got combined. Um,
I will also be talking about the Vricolicus.
oh, I'm excited to hear from your perspective. Similarly, as you can see with this postage stamp, Serbians and Croatians have a creature known as Volkadlak, and that word essentially means wolf's hair. So the Vrikolikas, to me, like just based on what I'm seeing, imagery wise and like characteristic wise, they seem more like werewolves than they do vampires. But I can kind of see how they were like,
Yeah.
yeah, they're like a combination. It's like, I guess, but it seems like mostly a werewolf, in my opinion. Um, and then Dracula himself can turn into a wolf. So in Bram Stoker's Dracula, he transforms into a giant wolf and attacks Lucy and her mother. So it's like, oh, they're kind of one and the same in this scenario, which is very cool. So next, I want to kind of talk about then if werewolves and vampires were considered like one and the same, at what point did we get this kind of like they're mortal enemies? So this originated most likely from the soap opera Dark Shadows, which was in the 60s and early 70s, in which the vampire protagonist meets a bunch of werewolves throughout the series, and sometimes they didn't get along, like not always. But then where it like absolutely took off was the Underworld film series. So this film series was highly popularized.
So good.
So good. It became like video games and all sorts of things as well. But werewolves and vampires are actually enemies in this series. So this was kind of probably where it became most known to people to like associate them as enemies. And interestingly, Underworld's depiction of werewolves was a huge like inspiration for werewolf design in like any type of media that we see
Hmm.
today, where they've got First of all, I want to point out some things that are interesting. Again, thanks to maverickwerewolf.com. These things were pointed out to me and I had never considered them before. If we're looking at this werewolf, it doesn't necessarily look like a wolf, I guess.
Hmm.
Like in some ways it does, but really you're looking at its face and that's not a wolf head. Like that's something
Yeah.
else. And it's not even that it's like a wolf head combined with a human head because it doesn't look more human than wolf. It looks like something other entirely. The ears are not quite right. They're on the side of
Hmm.
the head and they're flat and back. The snout is kind of a weird shape as well, not exactly what a wolf would look like. And it's got no tail, which is something you'll notice with like werewolf depictions. They don't give them tails.
It's kind of
Crazy.
like the Harry Potter werewolf almost,
Yes.
except like more hair.
And it's funny that you say more hair because most werewolf designs, they depict them as having like really sparse, like
Yeah,
mangy type of like no fur, which is like, that's weird. Why
right,
would that happen? But really, I mean, it probably just originates from them trying to look scary. Like they're trying
right.
to make something that evokes fear when you look at it, and that thing is
Sure.
scary.
It
But it
is.
doesn't look like a wolf man. It looks like something
It
else.
looks like a demon, like a creature.
It does. It looks like, yeah, something that's like, okay, maybe a cousin of a wolf, but that's not a wolf man, okay? And I stand by that. Um, and then lastly, as far as like vampires versus werewolves, we have the Twilight franchise as well. Another pop culture sensation that featured a strong rivalry between the werewolves and the vampires. And it even went so far as to make up fake Native American folklore, which is kind of crazy that she did that.
Stephanie, that was
But
crazy, girl.
it was a different time. It was a different time.
You could do
Um,
whatever you wanted to in the early 2000s.
You really could, especially if you were a white lady. Like, you could get away with it. Um, and I say that as a white lady. So the last thing I want to talk about as far as like what could have inspired werewolf legends? Could it be that people who were just normal humans were being accused? Well, they were. People who were normal humans were being accused of being werewolves, but people who had some sort of condition that's attributable to a scientific medical diagnosis. Were they being accused of being werewolves? And to that I say probably not. So there is a theory that people with hypertrichosis, otherwise known as werewolf syndrome, were being maybe accused of being werewolves. So this is a condition where you have excessive hair growth all over your body. And a lot of times it can cause like gum and teeth abnormalities. So you might actually have like some strange mouth and teeth shapes as well.
Hmm.
So scholars were like, "Oh, I bet this is what happened." People saw them and they were like, "That's a wolf man right there." Um, but
It's
this
like
is
how many
probably
people had this condition though? It's like, were
right.
there enough that like it was a problem?
Yeah, no, and that's a great point, but also the like written records of people who were being accused of being werewolves actually didn't look like people with this condition because whenever people were accused of being a werewolf, when they were in like their human form, they were not like said to be like overly hairy as a human.
Yeah.
Um, and they actually, there were some other things as well. So, like, they said that when they were in their human form, they might like always have fur on their palms, which is
Uh-huh.
with this condition, people with hypertrichosis actually don't have hair. Like, their excessive hair growth doesn't extend to their palms. So,
Because
they're
that'd be
like
weird.
conflicting things. Yeah. Like, there are just things that point to this not being the reason that people thought
Yeah.
werewolves existed. But I like the theory. It's just that
Yeah,
it's kind of been like debunked at this point.
sure.
Yeah, and so lastly, I just have to end us on a beautiful slide of these are my favorite werewolves in media. And I just want to give some shout outs to them. American Werewolf in London, classic, love him, iconic. Ginger Snaps, have you seen it?
Uh-uh.
Oh, you have to watch it. So good. I won't spoil anything for anyone, but it is like a must watch in my opinion. It's kind of like a horror comedy type thing.
Okay.
Of course, Jacob Black from New Moon, my first love, and I had to give him a mention. Red Riding Hood. Have you seen that or read the book?
No.
Okay, also highly recommend. This is one of my favorite pieces of werewolf media. And I will say, like, I read the book in middle school. It's a young adult novel.
Okay.
Loved it, was obsessed with it, and then they came out with a movie in 2011 featuring Amanda Seyfried. And
Oh, I know what you're
hmm,
talking about. I didn't see it, but
you have to. We'll watch that together. We'll watch Ginger
okay.
Snaps and Red Riding Hood. We'll have a werewolf movie marathon.
Sounds good.
And then lastly, a shout out to Tyler Lockwood from The Vampire Diaries, another one of my earliest
Yeah,
crushes.
Tyler.
Tyler, what are you doing here, Loca? Um, love them all. What thoughts do you have about werewolves after learning all of this?
So I will say that, like, especially with like the ancient history, like
Mm.
of werewolves, it's very similar. I think to kind of like this starts with vampires, which I'll go over and how like, well, the difference is like it's more demon based, like, and this is
Oh
more
yeah,
like curse based.
true.
Um, which I don't know, it's just always interesting how like gods always kind of come into play with this and like how it's always like somebody meddling in something they shouldn't be and
Yeah. And then
it
it's
like
like,
comes
well,
back
you're
on
gonna
them.
pay for that, and now you're
Yeah.
gonna be
Now
this
you're a wolf.
evil thing that's not accepted by society. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy the things that we come up with as people to like to sort of be like
Yeah.
cautionary tales, but they're like so extreme. And it's like, oh, your life is ruined forever.
Or it's just like people come up with the craziest things just to justify like weird things that are happening. And it's like, well, it
Yes.
must be that they're a werewolf. It must be that they're a wolf man.
It's crazy
And
because that's kind of the plot of Red Riding Hood, except there is actually a werewolf. They were right, but
yeah. Well, okay, but also it's like, do you think some of it's real? Because I do sometimes think there's like a little bit of truth in things. And it's like if stories were going as far back as like ancient Greece and stuff like that, which every generation has their own stories and like
Mhm.
cautionary tales and whatever, but it's like, is there like a grain of truth in some of it?
Yeah, well, you think
Like,
about
are people just being creative?
I think yes, ultimately people are just being creative, but if you think about like I've actually never seen a wolf in person,
Me
but
either.
they are, from what I understand, they are pretty big and
Yeah.
they're pretty scary. So it's like, okay, when you go back to like the time of like cave people, they probably were even bigger because animals just tended to be bigger back then.
Hmm.
So one, that's absolutely terrifying.
Right.
So you combine that with like something being scary, and then like you combine that with like people are just very creative and they're trying to come up with ways to keep their community safe, especially children who are very curious and naturally
Sure.
want to wander into the woods or whatever it is where the wolves live.
Like, couldn't fucking be
So
me. Stay out of the woods.
yeah, well, as a child, like, no, I for sure would have been in the woods. I would have been
I
like,
wouldn't have been in the
let's go
woods.
exploring. Oh God, it's a miracle that I'm okay. Yeah, because I
No.
did do some wandering. We had in our when we lived in Kansas for a couple years, our house backed up to like this wooded area,
To be fair,
and
she lived in like the most haunted town in like the United States
it's
besides
true.
Savannah, Georgia.
Yes, so Atchison, Kansas. I feel like we talked about it on a Minisode at one point from like our childhood ghost stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in those woods, usually with my brother. I didn't like go alone, but still, like he was 11, so what was he gonna do? Like, not much. Yeah, but I'm okay. I didn't
But
get
she's fine.
haunted. I didn't get eaten by a wolf. I didn't get kidnapped. I didn't, well, I was gonna say I didn't break a bone. I didn't break a bone as a child.
Yeah,
Well,
like she's fine.
from doing that, I didn't break
You
a bone.
should play
I
in the
did break a
woods,
bone.
kids.
You should. If
That's the issue with these days. Kids
if you
just
take
don't
a
play in the
friend,
woods.
they become little babies
Yeah,
if you
get these
coddle
kids
them
out in
too
the
much.
woods.
Get them out in the woods. Ah, okay. Well, that was Best Friends Book Clubs Explains the Werewolves. Also, Can I say?
Yeah.
Can I say? We've had a couple drinkies, and also we're recording these back to back, just so you know. So by the time we talk about vampires, we're gonna be at this
We're gonna
level or
be
beyond.
pretty well off, I think, at
We're
that
gonna
point.
be blessed and highly
And
favored.
highly favored.
So I just wanted to say if we seem a little glonky,
I just want to say I love you, and I'm so glad you're here.
oh my God, thank you for being here. We love all of our best friends. And join us for our next full-length episode on March 30th, where we discuss Mate by Ali Hazelwood, which is the
Yes.
sequel to Bride, and the reason that we're talking about werewolves and vampires in the first place, because Mate is about werewolves, Bride is about
And
werewolves and
vampires.
vampires. Yeah. So, if you haven't read Bride already, please read that first. It gives you
A lot of
necessary
context.
context for Mate. And we do have an episode over Bride as well. So go ahead, get started on Mate if you haven't already, and Bride if you haven't read either. We'll talk to you next time, and as always,
Let's get lit.